Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Washington Times Media Spotlight. I'm Steve Malzberg. And, you know, it's getting harder and harder not to sound like a broken record as I talk about the media coverage of the election, because the media repeats over and over and over again their bias, their fake news by omission, and the double standard in the way that they cover the two campaigns. Let's go to last Tuesday when Kamala Harris announced Tim Walz as her running mate. Immediately, the media added Tim Walz to the Kamala Election Protection Plan.
Viewed as a moderate Democrat.
He is a centrist.
Kind of a centrist Midwesterner in persona.
A more centrist type who can appeal to suburban voters.
Moderates, even moderate Republicans.
Absolutely more moderate than people are giving him credit for right now.
That's part of a montage put together by the Media Research Center. Now, there may be a case to be made for Tim Walz during his time as a congressman being a little bit more moderate, but I guess the media has decided to throw out the 6 years that he served so far as the governor of Minnesota. Just some examples of Walz's policies that should eliminate the use of the term moderate to describe him. The AP says that Governor Tim Walz made Minnesota a refuge for young people coming from other states for gender-affirming care, something all moderates and independents and undecided Republicans certainly approve of. Most moderates, I'm sure, approve of stocking school bathrooms with tampons, starting from grade 4. That's boys and girls' bathrooms in many cases. In fact, some Republican lawmakers in Minnesota had attempted to amend the bill to apply only to girls' bathrooms, but they didn't have the votes. And then there's the abortion bill signed into law in his state. Many say it leaves Minnesota with essentially no restrictions on abortion at any stage of pregnancy. Another attraction for moderates. So virtually no restrictions on abortion, tampons in bathrooms from grade 4 for boys and girls, and inviting minors into his state to have sex change surgery. Oh, now I get it.
He will be able to pull over some of those more moderate voters.
Yes, folks, moderate voters would also find it appealing to know that Walz attended a CAIR event, that's C-A-I-R, in 2019, according to the Free Beacon. He rubbed shoulders with an anti-Semitic scholar behind much of the Hamas propaganda on college campuses in the wake of October 7th, according to photos from the event. And Walz reportedly, repeatedly, hosted a Muslim cleric who celebrated October 7th and shared a pro-Hitler website link. Sounds like a middle America moderate to me. But folks, these stories of Walz and the Hamas people, the Hamas supporters, it's not getting reported. It's fake news by omission, so the public won't know about it. And I want to make sure that you know about this. Longtime Democratic strategist James Carville used his Politicon podcast on YouTube to say this to Jesse Waters and anybody else who's talking about the Tim Walz tampon story.
I have a message to Jesse and of the whole freak show is, why don't you take a tampon and shove it right up your, because that's where it goes, right up your. Oh, maybe you could stick it in your mouth.
So when it comes to media coverage of Tim Walz, let's all say it, in-your-face media bias. Now, last Thursday, Donald Trump held a press conference at Mar-a-Lago. And before the conference started, an hour before the conference started, CNN's Kristen Holmes actually went on CNN and said, well, this might not happen.
We haven't heard from him in a while. He's been pretty quiet lately in terms of speaking on camera. What are you hearing about what he might be talking about today?
Yeah, Jessica, and I think that's probably why he called this last-minute, quote-unquote, press conference.
So-called press conference?
And I say that because, yes, we are told that he is going to take questions, but it's still unclear if that's definitely going to happen. We are in a room where we have access to the former president, so we are within shouting distance.
Okay, so we're told we have Trump coming to a room which has press conference facilities. We're going to have access to Trump, but because he did it once before or a couple of times before, it may not happen now. To me, that's a bizarre way to do a story 1 hour before a scheduled press conference. But he did have the press conference, and he spoke and took questions for more than an hour.
Our Second Amendment is a very important right, and it has to be protected.
All right, there's a lot to fact check there, so we're just going to run through things here.
Yes, CNN was the first to cut out of Donald Trump's press conference. And then, surprise, surprise, fact check. And it wasn't just CNN. MSNBC was next to leave the press conference.
Yeah.
And so about an hour into this press conference with Donald Trump, we are going to continue to listen, and we'll let you know if any news is made here.
Oh, that's so nice of them. And then?
But I think it's important, again, after giving him an hour, to do some fact checks.
Fact check time. And don't you just love that she said, and we've already given him an hour. Oh, that's so kind of you. And later on MSNBC, later that night, Lawrence O'Donnell, he lamented the fact that fact-checking Donald Trump takes place after Donald Trump says what he says.
Every network has the capacity, especially with these wide screens we now have at home, to run a live scroll at the side of the screen, fact-checking many of Donald Trump's lies. Not all of them, that would be impossible, but many of them as he speaks.
Again, and what about Kamala Harris's lies about Trump? She says over and over again that Trump will sign a national abortion ban, which he has said he will not. She can say he'll cut Social Security, which was recently fact-checked by PolitiFact, and good for them. They call it dubious. Trump has said he will not cut Social Security or Medicare, and in fact now says he will eliminate Social Security taxes for those receiving benefits. Last Friday morning on ABC's Good Morning America, the Trump bashing continued.
During a more than 1 hour-long press conference, Trump repeating false and misleading statements, insulting the vice president's intelligence, criticizing her press availability.
How dare he insult Harris? We all know Harris never insults him. And Friday morning on Morning Joe on MSNBC, Patty Kay couldn't understand why Trump, who hasn't had many rallies in swing states lately, was going to do one later that day in a red state, Montana.
Donald Trump is not really holding rallies. He's holed up in Mar-a-Lago. He's doing one rally today in Montana, a state where he's 15 points ahead. So that's kind of head-scratching.
Trump also said he wasn't doing any swing state rallies until the Democratic convention was over. Gotta listen, Caddy.
Actually, I'm going out to certain places to help certain senators get elected. Not even for me. I'm trying to help when I go out to Wyoming or when I go out to Montana, or I'm going to different places to help people. And I don't have to go there because I'm leading those states, as you know, by 35, 40, 50 points. I'm leading by record numbers. I'm going because I want to help senators and congressmen get elected.
Speaking of press conferences, in case you haven't noticed, Kamala Harris hasn't held a formal one since becoming the presumptive Democratic nominee for president. She hasn't done a sit-down interview either, although she says she'll probably do one by the end of the month. The end of the month. Crazy. Some of the mainstream media have questioned this strategy. But the AP, they published a piece questioning the need for Harris to put herself out there. They weren't advocating for her to stay away from the media. Rather, they pointed out that for journalists, the lesson is that their role as presidential gatekeepers is probably diminishing forever. And folks, they're probably correct. Kamala Harris could go without doing an interview, without doing a press conference. The media won't go crazy over it, and the public won't care. They just won't care. And the media, of course, continues not to discuss at all how Kamala Harris is where she is without getting one single vote. And they continue to accuse Trump of bringing the end to democracy. Let me tell you something. If this were the other way around, if this was Trump and that he got to the top of the ticket this way like Kamala, or gave up the top of the ticket and another person came on, the same media members would be calling this a coup.
Kamala Harris is going to have to deal with, just like Democrats had to deal with in the state of Texas. Kamala Harris supports abortion to the very last second before a fully developed child in the mother's womb is born. That's late-term abortion. The baby can definitely feel the pain.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott telling it like it is on CNN about Kamala Harris and abortion. And Jake Tapper went into Kamala defense mode, sort of.
Survives one more minute,
are there abortions
will be born,
being
but
carried
instead
out?
will lose his life.
Where are there these abortions being carried out up until the moment of birth? I keep hearing Republican politicians talking about that, and I mean, that's infanticide. I don't know where this is going on.
Well, first of all, Jake, there are a number of states that have no restrictions on abortion, but that's not the issue. What Abbott is saying is absolutely correct. Kamala favors no restrictions on abortion.
The freedom to make decisions about one's own body and not have the government telling people what to do.
That was Kamala Harris in April of this year, but she has said that over and over and over again. The government has no right to tell a woman what to do with her body, translates to abortion right up until birth with no restrictions. And Jake Tapper has to understand that. He kind of, decided to go into Kamala defense mode, at least this time around, with the governor of Texas.
He filed his election paperwork February 10th, 2005. That was a month before the National Guard even announced that it was possible that they would deploy to Iraq, and it ended up being 2 months. He retired 2 months before they actually got the paperwork.
That's CNN's Dana Bash on CNN's State of the Union last Sunday, with J.D. Vance taking him to task over the fact that he said Tim Walz abandoned his National Guard unit 2 months before they were sent to Iraq back in 2005. She says that can't be because of the timeline.
But on CNN last night, Dana, one of the people who was actually in charge of him said they knew they were going to deploy to Iraq in February of 2004, fall of 2004. So he knew he was going to Iraq.
Oh, so sorry, Dana. That's tough to refute, is it not? And watch this, folks.
He decided to quit, to retire, whatever word you want to use.
Retire. She couldn't jump in fast enough to try to save Walz's reputation. And she wasn't finished trying to do that and to shame J.D. Vance at the same time. Here's more.
I've seen a lot of statements from veterans, including those you serve with, saying it's just untoward to be criticizing somebody who served for 24 years.
Okay, so she went from defending Walz with her timeline to how dare you criticize Walz at all, forget the timeline, to this.
Donald Trump didn't serve in the military. He received a medical draft deferment for bone spurs to avoid serving in the Vietnam War, reportedly as a favor to his father. Do you find that shameful, too?
I think that Donald Trump didn't serve in the military, but he didn't lie about it, Dana.
And that's the difference, plain and simple. And Bash has to know that. Look, folks, this is going to continue. The media will do what it can do to get Kamala Harris elected. They'll play this game. They will not inform the public. And we'll be here to point it out when we see it. I want to thank you all for watching this episode of the Washington Times Media Spotlight. I'm Steve Malzberg. Tell your friends, share the link, and until next time, stay safe.